You may want to watch this video before ordering one of the new BaoFeng 5RM ham HTs. A month or so ago, I had the opportunity to review the new BaoFeng UV 5G Plus GMRS radio, and it was pretty cool. I found the ham version of that on AliExpress, and a few days after posting the review on that radio, I found the 5RM HT on Amazon. The BaoFeng 5RM has an FCC registration number and was available from a U.S. seller, meaning the FCC registration was complete. Well, more on that in a minute. I was really curious if the 5RM, unlike its AliExpress version, the 5RH, met FCC signal purity standards for ham radio, so I ordered one to check it out. This review is that examination. If you're new to the Gadget Talk channel, welcome. We do reviews and how-tos on a variety of gadgets that catch my eye, though we tend to focus on ham radio, GMRS radio, and shortwave listening topics. If you find this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell to be notified when we post new videos. I really appreciate it. The 5RM appears to be the same radio chassis as the UV 5G Plus and the UV 5RH. Both the 5RH and the 5RM have the same hardware version number on the radio screen, though the firmware versions differ. As mentioned a couple of weeks ago in the 5RH review, this little radio is pretty cool. It has a similar boxy look and feel to the original UV5R, so for those of you who like that little radio, you'll likely find that the 5RM is similarly pleasing. Unlike the original UV5R, the 5RM has several updated features. However, despite these upgrades, there is, in my opinion, a couple of fairly serious flaws. Before we get to those, though, let's do a quick feature review. The 5RM is marketed as a high-power ham HT. As we'll see in the power test, it does output more power than the typical 5-watt HT does. It didn't make it all the way up to 10 watts, but it reached a solid 7 watts, which is pretty good for a budget class radio. The radio has a nice color screen that's about twice the size of the original UV5R's display. As with most color screens, it can be a bit difficult to read in bright sunlight. I found that by holding my hand over the screen to provide some shade allowed me to see the screen well enough. The radio is a tri-band radio with the ability to transmit in the ham 2-meter, 1.25 meter, and 70 centimeter bands. It also includes an FM broadcast receiver and can receive aviation broadcasts in the airband frequencies of 108 to 137 megahertz. It also receives NOAA weather broadcasts in the 160 megahertz range. As with several new releases in this category, the 5RM also includes frequency and tone scanning functions as well as a stopwatch function. Unlike the original UV5R, the 5RM comes with a 2500 mAh battery for long standby times and 999 programmable memory channels that can include a broader range of receive frequencies than just the ham transmit channels. Let's take a look at what you'll get in the package. So here's the box that the 5RM comes in. It's pretty typical of BaoFeng, but I did notice one thing that I found pretty interesting. We'll flip this around, let the camera refocus, and here's a little sticker with a URL to the software that this radio uses, or it says you can download it from the BaoFeng website. So that's a little different. I haven't seen that on these kind of boxes before, so that's pretty handy. Also notice that it says it's the 5RM 10-watt ham radio, so they're marketing it to ham. And that's going to be important as we look a little bit further. So let's take a look at some of the things that are going to come in the box. As always, let's take a quick peek at the user's manual. It really doesn't amount to much, just a few pages. It's the typical BaoFeng. It's got some of the main features, battery safety stuff, the icons that you'll find on the display, the description here of what the various buttons do, and then a list of the menus along with some instructions, keystroke by keystroke, for some of the main features. So it's pretty typical. If you've seen other BaoFeng users manuals, this one's going to look just like it. So here we have the desk charger. It's wired in. You don't plug the wire in separately. Obviously a US plug here in the United States. It says 5RH here on the little insert, so it's the same as the 5RH that I've already reviewed. And then it doesn't come with a USB-C cable. However, the battery does have a USB-C input on the back that I'll show you in just a moment. It's got the typical connections, a belt clip with the screws mounted in the back of the battery to keep them safe during transport. You take them out, put the belt clip on. You can put your lanyard right through there, or there's another lanyard hook on the side of the battery as well. And then the lanyard itself is right there. You can put it around your wrist if you have a tendency to be a little dropsy, as I sometimes am. The next thing in the box is this little wired earplug and push to talk. I sometimes refer to this as the secret agent headset, but it has a K1 connector that plugs into the side of the radio. The push to talk is wired in line to the earbud that fits in your ear, so you can press the push to talk and speak into the microphone there. So then you're not quite the disruption that you might be if the radio speaker was on and you didn't want other people to listen or to bother them. Last, in terms of what comes in the radio, is a little dual band antenna. As with many of the newer BaoFeng radios, it's not the hard, stubby rubber ducky, but it's a little bit more flexible. It's a dual band, and the frequency range is here on the radio. The thing to keep in mind is the radio itself is tri-band, which means you're going to have to come up with a 220 antenna from a third-party vendor. Lots of those on Amazon, and then some of them are tri-band antennas, so they'll work with all three, the 1.25, 2 meter, and 70 centimeter bands. So with that out of the way, let's do a quick tour of the radio itself. The screen is there. It's quite a bit bigger than the typical UV5R. It's about twice as big, as a matter of fact. There's a VFO memory switch button here, AB switch button to change from upper to lower registers, a one-touch button that's going to do that single-touch scanning that this radio will do. The green is menu, the red is exit, up and down to go through the channels or the menu choices, numbers on the keypad to key directly in the channels that you might have, or if you're in VFO mode, directly in the frequencies that you might have. The shortcuts are labeled in blue here on these keys, so if you wanted to go to transmitter power, you could hit menu 2, and that TXP represents transmitter power. Here you've got the lock key with the star, and then here you've got a scan key with the number key or the pound key. Here you've got the speaker, you've got the microphone right over here. So that's a quick overview of the front of the radio. If we go to the side, we've got the push to talk over here. This will turn on the alarm, and the flashing flashlight here at the top. This side key here, which will turn on monitor, as I recall, and go into FM mode. We'll do a power on demo of that here in just a second. Then across the back, we've got the battery. The battery comes out easily with just a press of a button here, and there are the belt clip screws right there. Here is the USB-C on the battery, so you can plug a USB-C cable in down here, and you've got a little LED that'll give you the charge status as you charge, and then of course the charging pads here for the desktop charger. As you move over here, you've got the cover for the K1 connector, so you've got mic and speaker outputs there. It fits pretty tight. The radio is not watertight, but these covers are pretty snug. And then across the top, you've got the SMA male. You can, if you see a little spike there inside the SMA for the plug side of the antenna connector, and then a large LED for the flashlight, and then you can turn it on and off using that knob there. So if you are going to purchase a 220 antenna or a tri-band antenna for this, you want to make sure that you order an SMA female or socket side antenna for this radio. Now let's do a quick power on tour of some of the radio's main features. Okay, so we've got the radio on now. You see the upper register and the lower register, and you see the color screen. The upper register is active now, the A, and it says main right up there. You can see that the battery icon is full. I've charged the battery here for this demonstration. The L represents the low power, and that'll change to medium or high depending on the setting that you use there with menu item number 2. And then the lower register I've got set in the 220 band or the 1.25 meter band. Over here you can see both of them are in VFO mode. If I press the little orange button here, I'm in main, so we'll go press change to channel mode. It's on channel 7. You see that changed. And this is just random numbers that come programmed in the radio. But you can see the power there is high, and there's a little circle with a D in it, which means there's a DCS code associated with channel number 7 in this radio. We've got the AB button here, which changed the main from upper to lower. So now we'll transmit in the 220 band, go back up to 440 up there. And then here we've got menu and menu exit. Let's take a quick look at the menu. So we've got menu 0 is squelch, and these work the same way as other menus do. You can go up or down with the various menu choices. So if I go up to power, which is menu number 2, you see that blinking. You see the dot next to the high. If I press menu again, things start to change, and I can go down. Now the middle is blinking. And if I press the menu, it says confirmed. It goes back to middle power, and then I can exit my menu. And then now you see up here the M is active, which means that the power setting is the mid power setting. Let's go back to menus. I'm going to go down so I can go to step. I can choose my steps. Squelch, for me, 3 tends to work pretty well. And then now a couple of the interesting newer additions to these BaoFeng menus. I've got version, so I've got firmware 0.14. I've got hardware version 0.1. Keep going down. I've got scrambler off. That's not legal in ham radios here in the United States. I can turn my stopwatch on. By pressing this, I get a display with a stopwatch. And then if I press the menu key, it starts to run. Press the menu key again, it'll stop. And then I can press the exit key. I'll get out of the stopwatch mode. Continue going down. Power on password if I want to reset either the VFO or the whole radio. Power on message, logo, or voltage. And then I go into Vox. Tones if I need tone to access a repeater. That's not the same as the CTCSS code. It's really more of a European function where they use a 1750 hertz to access repeaters quite often. The Roger beep is off, and then I've got some squelch tail eliminations and some DTMF code things that I can do if I want to use the radio and give the radio ID numbers and groups to limit who I hear when I'm working with a group of other radio operators, or if you were using this as in a commercial way. So that's a quick look at the menu. Now I'm back here in the main display. If I press this little green button, short press, really nothing happens. Maybe something that I need to program, but a long press gives me the search function, and that gives me the opportunity to have a radio that's nearby, as in, a meter away, transmitting, and I can search in the UHF band, the VHF band, or the 220 band. You can see this is in UHF right now, and if it reads a signal, it'll tell me the transmit frequency and the CTCSS or DCS code that's done. I can save that, and I can assign it to a channel, so it just makes matching up with a buddy's radio much easier without having to go through the whole menu programming process. So we'll hold that again to get out of that. So there's one more thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to change this to VFO here up in the main register, and I'll show you that it converts to AM when you go into airband. So I'm going to put in an airband frequency. And so you can see I'm on low power 118. The airband includes 118, and then you see that it says AM up there at the top. So This radio does go into the AM mode when you type in an airband frequency, which would allow you to listen to ground controllers, towers, approach controls, and so forth, if you happen to be fairly close to an airport. So that's a quick tour of the 5RM radio. Here's a quick look, or perhaps better said, a quick listen to the radio's audio. I'll use the UV5RH as the other radio in this demo. 5RM receive test, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Test out. 5RM transmit test, test, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, test out. I mentioned the 5RM's power output earlier. Here's a look at what you can expect in the 3 transmit bands. Let's start in the VHF on the VHF call channel 146520. I'm putting this power into my MFJ 874 into a dummy load, and I've got the power ring set to 20 watts since this is advertised as a high power handy-talkie. We'll see what that is, and it means that we're going to be reading it on the second arc from the bottom. So here is high power. Looks like it's right at 7 watts for high power. Let's go to medium. So here's the medium setting, and I'm going to change the range to the 5 watt range. Now we'll be reading on the lower arc. And so we've got about 2.9 watts of power there. So now we're on low, 146520. And it looks like it's right at 1 watt. Now let's bump up to the 1.25 meter range and see what we have there. Again, high power, 1.25 meter. Here we go. Got about 3.5 watts. Here's medium output on 1.25 meters. Looks to be about 1.3, 1.4 watts. Now here's low. Which is interesting. That's about 1.6 watts. So it's actually gone up a little bit on low power over medium here at the 1.25 meter. So now we're in the 70 centimeters. I've put the band back to 20 watt because I'm not sure what this is going to show. We'll be reading the power output then on the second arc from the bottom. And it looks to be about 6.1 watts there on high power. On medium, we'll set the watt range back to 5. About 3.3, 3.4 watts reading on that lower arc. And now we're on low in 70 centimeters. At about 1.6 watts, 1.6 watt. So that's the power output for this radio. Earlier, I mentioned a couple of flaws, and now is the time to mention those. First, while the radio has an FCC ID number, that number is not listed in the FCC device database. It may be that approval processes got delayed for some reason, but regardless, as of this recording, the ID isn't in the database. Next, I was really hoping that the 5RM did not suffer from the same signal purity issues that the UV5RH did. Alas, that was not the case. Here's a look at my testing using my Tiny SA signal analyzer. So let's do a quick test of this little radio, the 5RM from BaoFeng. And we'll get this set up on my Tiny SA. This is the original model, so it's divided into 2 banks in terms of the frequency coverage. So we're going to have to kind of switch a little bit to get the full range of the harmonics. But this first bank will give us the primary or harmonic number 1. And then harmonic number 2 here at about 293 megahertz. So we'll start by programming it in. We're going to measure, we're going to check the mode. We've got low. That's what we want. We're going to go to measure, and we're going to measure the harmonic at 146.520 megahertz. We're going to go to level, where we're going to add in our external gain. I've got a minus 40 dB attenuator, so that's times 1. And then there's two parts to the measurement. One is the harmonic being 40 dB less than the fundamental, and the other is a total power of 25 microwatts. So let's go back to the display. We'll draw a line at minus 16.02, which is the equivalent of 25 microwatts, and that's times 1. So now we're all set up. So let's press our press to talk here. I've got high power, which outputs about 7 watts. So let's take a look. It takes a moment or two for this to settle down. And you can see the primary or the fundamental frequency is at 6.5 dBm. The secondary, or that first harmonic, is at about, minus 11 or so. The difference between the primary and the harmonic is 19.8, so it's 20 dB below, approximately, which is only half the 40 that it's required to be. Well, now let's change and go up to the high range of this little meter. So we're going to go here, we're going to go back, we're going to change the mode, we're going to hit high input, have to make those same inputs here. So we're going to measure harmonics. I'm going to use the same primary because that's where I'm going to keep my radio, 146.520. Now this is going to start measuring in higher than that, but it's going to be reading those harmonics that's coming out of the radio. We've got the level, we've still got minus 40 times 1. In our display, we're going to go back and draw a line at minus 16.02 times 1. Okay, and so here is what we have at this point. Again, I'm going to keep it on 146.520, and I'm going to have it on high power. So let's see where we get here. Okay, so that 293, that first harmonic, rolls in at about 9.5, which is pretty close to what we saw in that lower level. We look at our next spike, that's going to be there in the 430, 440 range, and it's at minus 30 right there. And then the next one is going to be the harmonic at 586, and that's going to be at minus 20.5 is the delta between number 1 and number 2, and so it's reading there then at about 28 decibels. So those are below the line, but they're not below that fundamental, because remember the fundamental on that other band was at 6.2, and so these are not anywhere close to being 40 dB below, although 2 of these 3 are below that 25 microwatts. I really want to like this radio. I like the form factor, the feature set is solid, and the large battery and 999 channels would normally position this radio as a solid choice for a new ham or a prepper wanting an inexpensive but capable HT. Unfortunately, my 5RM needs some work in the final amplifier and filtering stages. Well, it looks like I'll be adding another radio to my junk drawer, as I don't want to knowingly use dirty radios. Again, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Views and contributions to my Buy Me a Coffee page help provide the resources to buy some of the items viewed on the channel and, as in this case, help prevent you from buying a marginal radio, at least signal-wise. I'll link my UV21R review over here so you can compare the two. Thanks for watching, and 73.